You are listening to Indie88. This is the Your First Listen album premiere special of Sloan's Steady, out October 21st. I'm Lana Gay, joined by Chris Murphy.
Thank you very much for having me. We're going to play the whole record.
We're going to play the whole record, and we need your, your guidance throughout the whole record.
Can I talk the whole time like a DVD commentary, like while the song plays? Check out this part.
You know what? We're going to let the songs shine on their own. This is your 13th record, and is it true it's out 30 years exact to the day of your debut's release?
That was my big idea. I think it's 30 years to the month. I think our first record came out October 1st, 1992. And for context, what happened then? Sinead O'Connor ripped up a picture of the Pope. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't recently. It was a long time ago. And we're the same four principals. We do have Gregory MacDonald as our kind of musical director, auxiliary guy, and have had since 2006. But the four principals that were there in 1992 and actually back to 91, we're still doing it. And we like to think that it's a rare breed of band that is still together after all this time and still so good. Mm-hmm. Sorry, your words, not mine. I just see it written on a piece of paper.
I have all the papers.
I'm just kidding. No, I do think, I know that it's delusional to think that your 13th record is as good or as your classic run or whatever. I realize that, our classic run would be kind of like 97 to 99. That's kind of like our commercial peak and like when we were kind of like part of culture more so than we are now. And I love those records too. But I like to think that we're still, even though maybe we're not on the tips of everyone's tongues, but we're still, quietly making a giant, excellent quality body of work that, let's just face it, it can't be denied. I don't know.
I've got to say, Steady is a great listen, and a ton of there's some surprising tracks on it, a ton of perfect drive-in tunes as well, which I love, and I've got a lot of nerdy questions for you, but can we start off with Steady was put together during the pandemic?
Yes.
Is this ironic because it was one of the most unsteady times?
No.
Where is this from?
The Steady is more, I was thinking, I did have a bunch of names for records. I have a whole bunch. Our last record was called 12, which was, thought was a major thumbs down. It was, to me, a compromise gone wrong. I was like, 12 is the worst. It reeks of creative bankruptcy or something. 12, anyway, I like there to be a fun title, or, I don't mean to be too goofy, but, I do have Andrew in the band, so we're not going to seem like clowns because I have this cool dude behind me, so I can be as goofy as I want, I feel. But Steady, it's kind of like our first record was called Smeared, which is a terrible name, but like it's kind of like a one syllable S word kind of. I wouldn't say the record is like the first record, but there's an echo there, and maybe it's too on the nose to talk about it. It's like Sloan Steady is kind of like slow and steady kind of joke. Yeah.
You're going to win the race.
Yes.
Excellent. I
don't even know if Andrew gets that pun yet, because I think he would have shot down the idea. I think he'd be like, "Oh, with your puns."
Okay, Chris. We could talk forever.
Sorry.
I'm excited to go. We got to start the record.
Let's go.
Okay. So first off, we're going to get to Magical Thinking, and I'm curious about. There's this moment of I called it the Disney harp.
Yes.
That begins everything off, and then there's a right to a sense of urgency. Where did that come from?
Well, the song is called Magical Thinking, and sometimes on records, we have like a little, Patrick often comes up with them little events before songs, and this is like a little, as you say, like a Disney magic thing, but I didn't, on the demo, I have like something I got from YouTube of Disney magic kind of thing, but we figured that would put us in trouble if we did that, so we tried to recreate it using glockenspiels and harp sounds. We didn't have a real harp, but just like harp, and just layered them to sort of make a magical sound. And the song itself is kind of a sort of joke about people who sort of imagine that they're what they believe is the truth or whatever. It's just sort of, it's kind of, I mean, I guess topical in some ways, but I am a believer in science and facts and truth and all that kind of stuff.
I have to say, there's a little bit of the people of the sky,
That's right.
Going in there. Is that a call to the past?
No, but I did think of that sort of as it was happening. And Pavement played Toronto recently. I thought when we did People of the Sky in the first place, that it was very much kind of like a Pavement nod. And so maybe it's a nod to Pavement somehow indirectly. Anyway, cheers, tip of the hat to Pavement. I like that song a lot, and it's weird. It's got a kind of upstroke feel to it. It's almost like ska, like this type of music that's much maligned and not really my favorite type of music, but there's a sort of upstrokiness to it. But anyway, I don't know why I would bring attention to that, but I'm not a huge fan of ska. But
I'm gonna have to listen back because I didn't get a ska vibe. But again, you're the creator.
Just means with all its kind of upstrokeness to it, it's almost impossible for me to play the bass part and sing at the same time. So I've been working on the coordination for months and months.
What is the most challenging Sloan track to perform?
A lot of Jay's songs, like he lets me go crazy with bass. Patrick often, like I'll say, you could do this or you could do this. He's like, just keep it simple. Come on. But Jay just lets me go nuts, and sometimes Jay's got me singing crazy parts. So almost any Jay's songs from the later half of our career, and I have a song called "Follow the Leader" from like 2011 that I have to sing and play at the same time. It's almost impossible. But
Okay.
this is impossible. Patrick finds magical thinking because it's basically a duet with Patrick. He's nervous about playing it because he has so many lyrics to remember. I think of it, again, we're talking too much about the one song, but I think of it almost like a callback to Underwhelmed, which is on our first record, which is kind of a wordy, nerdy duet between Patrick and me. And I think of it as kind of like Underwhelmed 30 years later, same guys kind of thing. Anyway.
Going to track 2, Spend the Day, I believe this one was written by Patrick.
Yes.
And he says it reintroduces the idea of the other side in this one. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know if there was a lot of kind of continuing narratives from previous works on this record.
I think Patrick has a song called The Other Side on our record from 2009 or something like that. And I think he's mentioned it a few times, maybe even twice on this record. I think he says Other Side. But I think in his mind, I think he feels that it's I don't know if it's a refuge, but I think it's like this sort of other existence that he has, like beyond reality, whatever that is, like sort of something that I don't really completely understand. But I don't know what he's talking about, but he's doing all right.
Fair. Let's get to track 3. She Put Up With What She Put Down. And my notes are just so sweet and Beach Boys-y backing vocals. I brought that out there.
This is a breezy J number, sort of like The Lines You Amend, if you know that song of ours. It was a single from 1996. And it's just like a breezy acoustic guitar track of Jay's. And I have a lot of bass responsibilities and vocal responsibilities. So check out how busy I must be the whole time.
I do know that there's some notes saying it's a fictional tale, and I wanted to know how often do you build narratives about other people and other kind of imaginary concepts, things that aren't biographical in your music?
I'm usually pretty autobiographical. Jay sometimes does stuff with characters. I notice with Jay's song, he's always talking about reading something or listening to something. Like he's often talking about, the lines you amend, or like reading this. The first line of the song is like reading the draft, wasn't sure where to laugh. He's such a consumer of books and magazines and movies. Every time you go to his house, he's just watching Turner Classic Movies. He's watching some old black and white thing with Cary Grant. And anyway, but he just loves to write about. He's just a fan. I would say that our band is built on fandom and good for fandom, and we have, if you're a fan of music, we like to think what would our favorite band do, and we try to do those things. And Jay for sure is like got a giant record collection and he's a musicologist, and so I assume that's what he's talking about again. I think he's talking about a critic, like a rock critic or something, when he's talking about in this song.
Sloan and Human Nature on Indie88, the latest off their record, Steady. Chris Murphy's joining me. I want to talk about, first of all, the lyrics. You don't want to talk, but if you're going to gossip, make it good.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of gossip you've heard about yourself or your band?
I wish I were prepared for that. I don't know that, but the song is about gossip. And about being gossiped about. And I guess the turn in the song would be like the only thing worse than being gossiped about is to not be mentioned and no one cares. But you could apply that, I guess, to to a band that's still trying to get people to listen to them.
Oh, I thought that maybe that came from somewhere.
Well, no, I guess I was more thinking about in my family, my mother's side of the family. So I'm a Murphy, but my mother's a Lappin, Lappin is her name, and they always talk about the Lappin hotline if anything ever happens. Like, did you hear that your cousin Don bought a house in PEI? What? Oh, the Lappin hotline was going crazy, and we all just talk about each other, and we're on different text threads depending on who wants to know what. Same with the band. We have a text thread, just the band, and then the band and the crew. So there's always someone talking nonsense about someone, and I'm sure they talk it about me too. They probably talk about how hard I work or how good I am to everybody. I can't imagine what else they would say.
All that terrible gossip. Well, let's get to Scratch the Surface. Now, this is one of the first tracks that was released. One of the few tastes of
another Patrick coming and saying, "Do you guys need singles?" You look to me. You need something on the radio? I got it. Do you guys not have any commercial pressures because I have to do everything here? I think he thinks something along those lines, and he's done it again.
He's done it again. And is there when you guys sit down?
He's funding my art project. Thank you, Patrick. On behalf of everybody, thank you. We love you.
Much love, Patrick. Peace, love, liquor, and drugs. It feels the same. That's quite the lyric in there. Do you guys all sit down and pick the tracks that you want to be released first? Or do you let it?
Think I must admit that whenever we normally just, because the four principals, Gregory aside, the four principals, we split all the songwriting equally. Mm-hmm. So if Patrick has a single, I make the same amount of money off it as he does. So there's room for resentment there in Patrick. But I just mean, it's only just a matter of ego, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I personally thought that Magical Thinking was so great, or in terms of I was like, what I could bring to the record, or its commercial. Mm-hmm. I love my other song, Human Nature, too, but that's not going to be a single. But I thought Magical Thinking could be. But I think that kind of had been decided before. And it's, again, we let sort of like radio people decide those things, because if I say, no way, this song, and they're like, well, it did nothing, shows what you know. Okay. So at least this way, they're like, we think that, sometimes I have felt over time, sometimes that the same, Scratch the Surface would get noticed at radio because it's kind of a version of what we've done before. And even though I think that our group is has so much variety, that if you only knew us through our singles, you might think, well, that's kind of like a unidimensional band or something. I love Scratch the Surface, and I love what Patrick. I don't mean to be saying that I'm blaming Patrick for keeping us on the radio. I love him for it. But,
yeah, thanks, Patrick.
But I would like people to know how much variety. Anyway, I'm really happy that this show exists, because you're going to show all of the songs on the record, and people were like, holy crow, they do that too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of interested in your democratic process, because I know you split things 4 ways, and
yes.
With songwriting and beyond. So I didn't know if that also kind of came into how you released music or released those first few songs.
Well, it was kind of just, honestly, that was a little bit out of my hands. And then I was in the sort of position where I was kind of harumphing. I was like, well, what about my song? Like, I was in a weird position to say, well, wait, guys, what about my song? Like, it was too goofy to do that. So maybe the phones will light up when that song plays, and there'll just be some kind of grassroots.
That Panic on Runnymede, a bit of a pandemic track.
I think so. Yeah, so Andrew was, I think, the most afraid of the pandemic, or really hunkered down and was doing a lot of some serious nesting. Mm-hmm. And he really got into painting big time. He had his side hustle for a couple of years was he was trained to be a firefighter and became certified firefighter, but ended up not getting a job, which I'm kind of happy, because I think being a firefighter would be tough, and you just see a lot of terrible stuff, and I didn't want that for him. Whatever, I'm happy that there are firefighters. I don't mean, go be a firefighter if you have the stomach for it. But anyway, in the end, he kind of turned to painting, which was kind of his first love. When I first met Andrew, he was a painter at art school and kind of an art star at NASCAD, and he started doing a lot more painting, and that's what he was doing. So it was hard to get him out of the house to do this record. But he came out and he had 2 songs, and normally, we're democratic, where it usually a 12-song record at this point should be like an equal But I just had way more songs than he did because that's what I do in my spare time, and he paints pictures. But yeah, Panic on Runnymede. I think maybe people within range of your radio station will know that it's a subway stop anyway. It's a street in Toronto, and I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but it's I think he's sometimes can be a pessimist or whatever, or just think that things are bad. But whatever, he's a loving guy that is happily painting in his garage, and we got him out to do that song. I was happy he did it.
I heard that you did record drums remotely in a way that you had done in a past record.
That's right. Yes, we recorded them on a cassette player, a cassette 4-track player, and we did that as early as our One Chord to Another record. We did all the drums on a 4-track cassette, and that was in 1996. And that was partly because Andrew was living in a different city. We were all still living in Halifax, where we grew up. But Andrew was already living in Toronto, and he came down, and in one day, he smashed through all these songs on the 4-track cassette player. And then we took the 4-track cassette machine into a studio and finished it. And that's what we did this time, too, because we just recorded the drums in our rehearsal space because we didn't know about going into studios and that kind of thing during the pandemic. But our band is kind of built for the pandemic because we're able to do things piecemeal, and we don't usually jam out ideas. So everybody's capable of producing their own stuff and recording in ones and twos. So it didn't really affect us that adversely.
Oh, it's interesting that you continue to use that equipment. Is there something about analog that you enjoy?
Oh, yeah. Like, I love the sound of, I think that this one is even less scrappy. One Chord to Another, which is our commercially most successful record from 1996. The drums sound really tiny and tinny. The song, The Good in Everyone, which people might know, like those drums, they sound really boxy and 60s, that's kind of our aesthetic too. But I think this time, although we did use the 4-track, I don't think it sounds as kind of like a toy drum set as One Chord to Another did. But I think the drums sound cool.
Let's get to Dream It All Over Again, track 7. Apparently this was from your previous record from 12.
Yes, I knew this song for about 4 years as C-sharp rocker. That's how I knew it. And I thought it was going to be on our last record. I really liked it and was encouraging Jay to do it, to have it on the last record, but he was just so stymied lyrically that it just kind of fell the wayside. And but we're songs don't go in the garbage with us. We're just like, there's always a next time. And it was there, and I love it a lot. I think that song is going to be a single if Scratch the Surface ever runs out of steam. I think that'll be the next single, and we have a studio booked to make a nice video for that. So, because Jay doesn't have as many videos as I do, for example, for his songs, and one of his songs that was good for us in 2006 was called "Who Taught You to Live Like That," but it was just at a time when we weren't doing videos, or like, who does videos anymore? And so we didn't make one. So I regret that. So I want to make a nice video for his song, and I think I'll be featured. Don't worry, I'll be.
I was worried.
There'll be plenty of me in there.
Okay, good. Track 8, nice work if you can get it. So now, I heard that's an old saying. It wasn't in my lexicon, but did that come from? Is that something that you've always kind of said?
You don't know that. You don't know the expression. I mean, I think perhaps younger people don't know it. As an older person, nice work if you can get it would be the kind of thing where you're complaining about your job, but it's like, well, nice work if you can get it, meaning I don't have a lot of sympathy for you complaining about your job, which is actually pretty good.
Right. So
this song is me listing off a litany of complaints about my job, which is, again, I'm allowed to complain sometimes, but my job is pretty awesome. I don't really have any official complaints, but I was mouthing off there.
Sometimes you got to let it out.
Yeah. And it's very, Gregory makes fun of me because I love the Beatles. And so Human Nature is very much like the Beatles. He would say, oh yeah, so you're doing Beatles 68 and this is what, Beatles 65? And so he's pinpointing my Beatles lifts. And this is kind of, mid-period Beatles lift. But yeah, I like it. I think it's cool. Another duet with Patrick, that means that, he had a lyric sheet in the studio, but he's going to have to, I'm not getting him an Axl Rose teleprompter, so he better commit these things to memory.
Fair enough. I mean, after being in a band for 30 years, you have such a vast catalog. When touring, when touring, you don't do the Bruce Springsteen route, I'm assuming, where you're just going for it. Do you stick to the set list? Do you rehearse the same songs? I wish that we knew more songs at a time. We do have about 250 songs, but I would say that we never know how to play more than 30 at a time. I mean, there's, every summer we kind of drag out, 10 or 11 of the same songs every time kind of thing. But we like to punish audiences with, up to 10 new songs on any given tour. Not on a summer festival show, but if we're just playing at a club in Calgary, we'll play 2 sets and we'll play 5 new songs per set and punish people. Does it feel good though for you?
They're still good. What's that?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Does it feel not better, but does it feel good to make sure you have that time for your new songs?
Yeah, I think that in some ways we're fighting with ourselves. We're fighting for space in the set lists, and some people, even now they're like, I just want to hear that song from 2006. But at some point in 2006, they didn't want to hear that song. But now I understand the power of nostalgia and the power of I feel it too. But we just insist. We're like a cult act, and we think that even though in some ways we're fighting ourselves, as I say, I think it's important for us to take the new record seriously, or else we're just like a heritage act. And there's no shame in that, but we're defiantly putting out new records this far in.
Okay, we're about to get to Simply Leaving, which is the saddest song. And I've got to say, it starts off with that kind of Ronettes-y drum beat.
That's right. Yeah, it's the Be My Baby, Phil Spector beat. But yeah, it's nothing short of devastating, this one. I don't know if he's going to want to play it. I know the chords, but I don't know if he's going to, I don't know how, it's pretty, Patrick is the most earnest of the writers. I would like to think that my songs have meaning and those kinds of things, but they're usually pretty tongue-in-cheek, whereas Patrick's, especially here, like maybe never more than here, it's just like kind of devastatingly sad. But I appreciate that he has that ability and writes those songs, and I think people react strongly to them, and whatever. Again, as I say, he's an asset, and I'm happy to have him.
I love a sad song in life, I'm not going to lie.
Me too. Oh. I think it's great.
We're already at track 10, Close Encounters. And I love the fact Andrew put out, I'm sure you know about this, he put out a recipe for this song. Do you know about this?
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that.
So may I read it?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. It's 4 tablespoons of Black Sabbath, a 1/4 cup of Genesis, finely diced, 3 dashes of Rolling Stones, 2 pounds Motorhead, roughly chopped, season with Earth, Wind, and Fire, bake at 425 for an hour, and serve immediately.
He's very funny. I think that I don't know if I would get into arguing any of that. It's definitely kind of got like sort of some soul music vibes to it, but then it does get kind of metal-y too. Modern day Andrew is into jazz and Bob Dylan and stuff, but teenage Andrew was into British heavy metal like Saxon and UFO and just Motorhead. So he's of the 4 of us. I think he's the one that feels like he doesn't want to age. He doesn't want to. He sometimes feels like he's too old for some of the music that we play. Like we're aged out of playing rock music or something. But I don't feel that way at all. I don't feel like I have to like put on some costume that doesn't make me feel like myself. I love rock music. I never got so good on my instrument that I felt contemptuous of pop music. I still love it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I think that Andrew feels, he's the sort of Charlie Watts in the Stones. He's like this classy guy who has like a wine cellar and he's wearing a suit, and Mick Jagger's running around and like I don't know.
Are you the Mick Jagger of the band?
Sort of, but then to make that comparison it's sort of embarrassing because I'm just like, a sort of grosser version of Mick Jagger.
Lyrically, were, held hostage by the Wi-Fi bars and gas in our cars. It seemed like a definite, I don't know, like a very reflective tune.
Yeah, and it's definitely of the time too. I think he says, "I'm wearing my mask" and all that kind of stuff. I was at one point, I think, suggesting in an email, I was like, "Do you have to say wearing a mask because it makes it so specific?" But I think wearing a mask is also, it's not necessarily a COVID mask. Everyone wears a mask in whatever metaphorical way too.
Okay, 2 tracks to go.
And luckily for the listener, we didn't just leave garbage at the end. Like, I love these last 2 songs, the last one especially.
Oh, well, yeah, I have to say, track 11, I'm an insomniac, and I would dream of sleep. I was right there with you. But I thought this was interesting because you wrote this one.
Yes.
And isn't your wife a sleep consultant?
Yes. So I'm sort of exaggerating my sleep problems. I do have sleep problems if we're touring out west, and I'm staying up like a goofball until 6 a.m. Pacific time, and then I come home and I'm expected to get up with young kids. Definitely, that's hard. But like, I'm home a lot, and my wife is really strict about sleeping with our kids. We have a kid in grade 10. And it's like in bed by 9:30. He's like, all my friends are out, and she's like, bedtime.
My mom did that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And so she really thinks that sleep is whatever, of the utmost importance. And, if you don't get your sleep, then you're, die of heart disease. I think that she talks about sleep too much at home, but she's definitely on top of it, and she's good at what she does. And Rebecca Mendoza, if anyone has sleep problems.
Oh, you just dropped it. You just dropped something right there. Oh, let me pick that name up. Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Hey, you know what? Sleeping is important, though. And it is interesting that, as a musicians are not known for healthy sleep patterns or healthy lifestyles for the most part. No. At least if you have a 30-year career as well.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty healthy. I mean, I like to stay up late, again, with my buddies on tour, but like, I'm home a lot. I'm just a dad most of the year, and I'm happy to go on tour. I'm happy to come home. So I like all aspects of my life.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's get to it. And this one also has a bit of a country vibe.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Well, sometimes I think that part of my job is to write a song for Patrick, a song for Jay, and a song for Andrew. And this one's kind of for Andrew because he kind of likes country music. And I kind of thought, I was even thinking, because he only had 2 songs, there was a while there when I was thinking maybe he would sing this one, because we don't normally do that where somebody writes it and somebody else sings it. It didn't work out that way, but maybe he'll take a verse when we play it live.
All right, here we are, the final track on the new Sloan record. Chris, thank you so much for staying here and going track by track through the record with me.
Thank you very much for showing everybody just how versatile we are and how much range the band has, and showing off all 4 writers.
That's what we're here for. Okay, so let's get to track 12, Keep Your Name Alive. This is an epic driving tune. What's the story of this one?
Well, I have so much to do in this song. It's insane. I think Jay and I sometimes talk autobiographically about the band in a way that maybe our manager often says to me, "Would you quit talking about the state of your career? No one cares. No one can relate to that." But I think, I don't even know if he considered it this, but it's like, do you have to leave your home to keep your name alive? I think that's kind of pandemic-y too, perhaps. What can we do from our house or not just as a band, but I often see all these songs through the eyes of the band, but like not necessarily everybody would, but I don't know what he's talking about, but I think it's rocking, and it's the last song on the record, but I think it's a cool way to end the record. Yeah.
I know you're a big vinyl fan. I know Jay's a big vinyl fan as well.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming track listing is very nitpicky in particular with you guys.
Yes. I often, it's political in some ways, you want everybody, you want all 4 people represented in each third of the record, if you know what I mean. It doesn't necessarily have to be ABCD, but, everybody's, if you know what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, we're ending with this one, Keep Your Name Alive, or not we, I mean the album ends with this one. So.
It's a great one. I have a lot to do. I'm like working my ass off, and hopefully you get a kick out of it.
Chris, thank you again so much for spending the time with us and going through the record.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much for playing it. I think it's strong, but I'm deluded. That's your line. You should be saying it's how good it is. Actually, you've been very kind with your words too. Thank you.
It's an excellent record. I'm a big fan, and I'm hoping that we're actually going to play this. We're going to play more tracks off the record for sure.
It doesn't matter. I sometimes say we're not making records for you. We're making records for rock journalists in the future.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Any kind of sneak peek to tours or anything that we can get a little scoop while we have you here?
We're playing some shows at the end of November, but then we're like playing, we're getting down to it more in the early 2023 because we love to tour in the dead of winter. It's our favorite thing. So look forward to that.
We'll get you an Indie88 sweater.
Amazing.
Excellent. Thanks so much again.
Thank you.